changes in the publishing industry to produce and promote literature that reflects and honors all young people's lives. An ongoing conversation in public libraries is the importance of representation in our staff, materials, and services. By embracing equity, diversity, and inclusion in our organizational structure, our membership organizations, and the services we offer, we recognize that our country's diversity is our strength. In the US, February is Black History Month, something that we look forward to every year. It's a time for us to celebrate the history, contributions, and achievements of our Black friends and neighbors. Most years bring large crowds to a wide range of cultural and educational programs, including music, dance, writing, and art, and other events that explore the rich history of the Black community. This year, sadly, because of the pandemic, we may not be able to bring people together, but we can still celebrate virtually. Some examples of what's happening this month are a Black History Month trivia program for kids at the Cincinnati Public Library, a discussion about the contribution of Black athletes, and a screening of Ken Burns' documentary about Jackie Robinson at the Iowa City Public Library, a Black superhero showcase at the Louisville Free Public Library in Kentucky, and the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library in North Carolina is hosting a panel on Black creatives, which showcases Black businesses and services. Other programs are doing things like teaching popular hip hop dance moves, connecting people with popular authors, providing insight into Black life and their experience, and paying tribute to the innovations, creativity, and contributions of the Black community. So part of forging community requires having shared stories and experiences and being able to identify common values. Having to remain distant from friends and family during the pandemic has proven really difficult for some people who feel isolated. When the pandemic began, almost a year ago, I began thinking of how to keep people connected. Most of the libraries I work with are in rural areas, and social isolation is a real challenge. To encourage people to share their stories, we launched the Leaving Our Fingerprints on History project. The initiative asks people to share their experience of life during the pandemic, creating a crowdsourced first-person account of history. We developed a survey with a series of questions for people to answer, covering everything from their age to what they wanted future generations to know about this time. In addition to their stories, people can share photos, art, videos, all to show us what their life has been like. We're compiling all of the responses on a website, and you can see here, this is the address if you want to visit, where we create exhibits around common themes. Some of the topics we're highlighting so far include working from home, identifying what we've missed, and spoiler alert, it's our families, and what it's like to be an essential worker. We're continuing to create exhibits on everything from virtual learning to pandemic signage to COVID hacks, highlighting the creative ways people are doing things from a safe distance. When we started this project, we were thinking we were going to focus on the 4 counties we serve. But once the survey was out there and we were promoting it on social media, we had responses from as far away as California, and then from Canada and across the globe, including England and India, and I hope after today from Minsk and Belarus and beyond. And here's what we've learned from the hundreds of responses we've gotten. Although people may be struggling with anxiety, they're also rethinking what's important. Formally driven by the outside demands of work, school, and extracurricular commitments, people are reconnecting to their neighborhoods, families, and municipalities differently. And for the most part, finding care and support. Our youngest participant in this project is a 3-year-old, and our oldest is in their mid-90s. One of them really enjoyed having time to swim in the pool with Daddy, and I'll let you work out which one that was. But the common refrain we're seeing in responses is a desire to connect, to know our neighbors, build local connections, and work together on common goals. And libraries can play a vital role in convening and facilitating the conversations that need to take place to make all of this happen. The great thing about this project for me is that it demonstrates that while we may be keeping our distance from each other, we have more in common than we realize. So, libraries feeding people isn't a new thing, but the past year has seen a growth in the number of libraries partnering with local food banks and other organizations to address food access and food insecurity. When schools closed down, children who benefited from school lunch programs no longer were receiving regular meals. Libraries that provide summer lunch programs have relationships in place and organize meals for for children and their families. Others worked with local organizations to collect and deliver food to those most vulnerable in the pandemic. This past summer was the 3rd year of our Farm to Library program. Our program addresses the issues of food waste, food access, and food insecurity by working with local farms and our Comfort Food Community Food Bank. And what we do is we glean produce from our local farms and then distribute what we've gleaned through small rural libraries in what we call rural food deserts. And those are places that are at least 20 miles away from a supermarket. And in rural areas, sometimes there are issues around transportation. People may only have one car, and that car is used to go to work and may not have time to do regular shopping. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to continue this program in 2020 because of all of the COVID precautions we had in place. And I should explain, in New York, we were hit very hard early on, and the state was under a shelter-in-place order through most of June. But by the end of June, many of the libraries in our system were offering curbside pickup. And as we talked with our partner, Comfort Food Community, and our member libraries, everyone agreed to continue. So we did. Volunteers headed to the fields, Comfort Food Community delivered produce, and our library shared more than 5,000 pounds of fruit and vegetables. The pandemic has sparked conversations about who we are as a society and what communal values we hold. Public libraries are playing an active role in convening and facilitating conversations about issues that matter to people and encourage them to play an active role in our participatory democracy. In the past year, libraries have organized forums on the importance of completing the census. We've worked with the League of Women Voters to help people vote in the 2020 election and hosted anti-racist book clubs and conversations. Libraries are leveraging our trusted position to host difficult conversations, bringing in experts to help people make informed choices. I've been working with the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction on its Libraries Transforming Communities initiative, which is an 18-month cohort-based program bringing together public library staff and community partners to identify, address, and act on community issues. It was when we initially planned it, we had thought it would be taking place in person. And of course, we were launching this in March 2020, so those plans very quickly went out the window. We transitioned to a virtual program, and 10 months into the program, we're already seeing benefits from libraries working with their community partners. Participants have identified essential services like technology training and providing hotspots to people with limited connectivity, to putting together remote exercise classes to help people keep moving while we're at home. These partnerships play an essential role in helping our communities endure and hopefully thrive in the future. So virtual services, including programs, books, and streaming services, have been invaluable during the pandemic. But digital equity, where everyone has the technological capacity, which means both ability and access, including tools, resources, and services, to fully participate in our society, democracy, and economy, remains a concern. Public libraries have been creative in figuring out how to reach patrons who may not have broadband access or who may not be comfortable with technology. In addition to lending out hotspots so students can learn remotely and small businesses can hold meetings, some librarians are making home visits, dropping off materials, checking in on the elderly or patrons without transportation, and the homebound. And when we say the homebound, those are people who are not able to leave their home, maybe for health or other reasons. Other libraries check in on elderly patrons through phone calls, or they send letters and postcards to patrons that can't get to the library. Children's librarians are hosting Dial a Story Time, so kids can continue to connect with and enjoy books remotely. To help people adjust to the new virtual environment, many libraries are creating online tech classes, which cover everything from how to use social media, virtual meeting platforms, and various software applications. So when thinking about the future, we have to let go of our prior notions of what library services should be, while recognizing that people have grown accustomed to being able to access our programs and services on multiple platforms. And long after the pandemic is over, they're going to continue to expect these services, including curbside pickup, virtual programs, and downloadable and streaming materials in the future. Which means we have a lot of planning to do. We have to be intentional about our purpose and what we're trying to communicate. We have to find a way to create virtual spaces that are comfortable for people while supporting our mission and goals. And most importantly, we have to be kind to ourselves and be willing to make mistakes while learning how to navigate this new landscape. This is our first pandemic. We're all learning how to move forward together, and we need to allow ourselves the grace to admit that we may not know what we're doing, and that's okay. So when we think about hosting virtual programs, One of the things we can do is to talk openly with participants about what we're doing and admit that we're still learning. People will understand and provide valuable feedback about what's working or not working on their end. And finally, experiment and be playful. Technology responds to how we use it. As we think of new ways to connect, it will continue to develop and evolve with us. It's hard to remember now, but Zoom was created as a way to host virtual meetings. Its creators never anticipated that people would be celebrating holidays, hosting cocktail parties, and leading library programs on its platform. So moving forward, we have a chance to think about where we want to be after the pandemic is over. Here are some of the questions I've been asking myself and our member libraries. What can we give up? Or how do we need to adjust our current service models? What skills do we need to invest in to create robust, interactive services? What do we need to do to advocate and provide services for our communities so that no one is left behind? What tools do we need to invest in? And what resources do we already have in place? And finally, how do we help our communities rebuild and come back stronger than before the pandemic? Moving forward, in the end, our success relies on unleashing our creativity and making time to dream with our communities about what is possible. We don't have to return to the same world we left 10 months ago. This past year forced us to slow down. And in the United States, that's a significant shift. We pride ourselves on our productivity and our work ethic, and so much so that we often grab meals to eat in our car from drive-through restaurants. Sheltering in place reminded us of the importance of family, cooking together, and sharing a meal. Some companies are allowing employees to work from home permanently, which means public libraries will need to think about offering space and technology to support remote workers. This could lead to significant demographic shifts, bringing more and younger people to rural areas, creating broader support for infrastructure and libraries in those communities. As comfort with technology grows, public libraries will support new initiatives that benefit their patrons, including telehealth. In Texas, the Pottsboro Library currently allows patrons to have private, remote appointments with doctors in the director's office. When we think about what future libraries will look like, buildings will probably include drive-through windows, ample workspace for staff that's separated by doors or windows, and small rooms where people can have remote, private appointments or meetings. Whether in person or digitally, we need to remember the importance of human connection and our ability to imagine a better world. Public libraries are going to have an important role in convening and facilitating conversations about the future and supporting our communities in a technology-heavy environment. As David Lankus reminds us, bad libraries build collections, good libraries build services, great libraries build communities. I would add to that, fabulous libraries work with their communities to realize their aspirations. And as we boldly strive into our new reality, please be fabulous.